Hello, welcome to another SPSS demonstration exercise. Uh, this is the demonstration exercise for Module 4, and in this short instructional video, we'll go over demonstration 1. That demonstration is on page 121, and we'll go over the command strokes in SPSS to get our measures of central tendency through the frequency command in SPSS. The demonstration asks that we use the Monitoring the Futures data 2008 and we obtain our measures of center for GPA as well as the variable at weed, attitudes towards marijuana. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. What we want to do first is we'll close out of this. And I already uploaded SPSS just to save us some time. You can upload SPSS here at the university if you're on campus at one of our IT supported labs, or you can work remotely by accessing SPSS from the remote host. All right, once we're in SPSS, all we need to do, as you well know, is we need to go to File, Open, Data. Seems to be taking a moment. File, Open, Data. There it is. I'm sorry. Again, always those little glitches. And what we want to do now is we want to go to the L drive on the university server, College of Arts and Science server, the SOS lab, and we want to go to the SOS 232 survey folder, Datasets McSpirit, and we want to grab the Monitoring the Futures data 2008. Hit open. And then, well, here we are. And in this first demonstration, we're going to be using the frequencies command, which we already know. And but this time we're going to use a subroutine of the frequencies command. But before we get started, remember guys, always go preset your options here. Go to Edit, Options, and make sure the data is going to be displayed by the variable mnemonic. That way we can easily find the variable at weed and GPA, and that the variables are arranged alphabetically. Okay, and then hit OK. Yes. Okay, and then in terms of the next step here, we want to go to Analyze, down to Descriptive Statistics, because all we're doing is summarizing and describing the data still. Descriptive Statistics, and we're going to go to the Frequencies command. And here we want to get our measures of central tendency for the variable GPA, as well as the variable at weed. And that's up here on the top since we arrange things alphabetically. There it is, that one. Okay. Now we could hit OK, and that would just give us a frequency distribution. But again, we want those other measures we want those other descriptive statistics that summarize the distribution center point, those measures of central tendency. All right, and so we're going to go to Statistics, that subroutine up here, Statistics, and we're going to ask for the mean, the median, as well as the mode, right? The mean is simply the average of all scores. The median is the halfway point, and the mode is the most often reported score. And as the textbook discusses, the mode is the measure of center that you would most use if you're just working with categorical data in terms of the most often reported category. But things that we'll talk about once we get our output up here. Want to hit continue. And then we want to go back to OK. And here's our output. Now notice here what we have is more than our case processing summary. This first box now provides us with the descriptive statistics for the mean, the median, and the mode. And notice that the average GPA for students in 2008 was a 3.1, which is a little bit, right, a B, a little bit, the average GPA was a 3.1. Most students, the typical student was holding a B GPA, right, a 3.1. The median GPA was a 3.3. That means half of students were obtained in a 3.3 or better, and the other half obtained a 3.3 or lower. Okay, in terms of the 3.3 is the perfect middle of the distribution. And the 3.7 was the modal score. That means, as we look down here at the frequency, 3.7, 17% of students, right, received a 3.7. That's a little, but again, in terms of there's not really a high point on the distribution. There's not really a higher percentage of students. This is more or less most students were around this area of a 17%, right? 3.3, and so on. Again, if we mapped this data graphically through a histogram, we would see that this is a relatively, right, flat distribution with most students receiving a B, right, somewhere a low B or either a medium B or a high B. Okay, and the equal number of students were in the A range, right? But then there was this tail of the distribution where some students were struggling with a GPA of less than a C, right? Which is bringing down the mean towards that low end, as we'll start to talk about. Note here that the measures of central tendency were a little bit off, right? They're not quite the same, which suggests that the distribution is not perfectly symmetrical, but it's a little skewed, right? We can use those measures of central tendency to talk about skew in the distribution, that it's a little distorted. We're not getting an equal reading on the distribution's middle, right? Because the mean, the median, and mode are giving us different reports, okay? Things to consider and that are discussed in chapter 4 on the measures of central tendency, okay? But that's what you can look at all those three measures, and that can tell you whether or not the distribution is a little skewed or more symmetrical. With regard to the question on attitude towards trying marijuana, right? The average was 1.86, the median was 2, and the mode was 1. Right? Now note here, guys, that the only appropriate measure of center when working with categorical data is really the mode, where you just can report the most often reported category. And we can see here that in terms of using one measure of center, if we range this as a bar chart, 45% of young people, right? That's the highest percent, don't disapprove of trying marijuana. 23% disapprove and 31% strongly disapprove. But most young people are pretty okay with whether or not their friends try marijuana or they themselves try it. Okay? That just represents, right, a summary, all right, of how to read your measures of center tendency. If you're getting your measures on categorical data, really just use, even though you have these other statistics, just really report the modal value. Most young people, i.e. 45%, reported that they don't disapprove of trying marijuana, okay, when you're writing your report. And then once you're done, all you need to do is cut, copy, and say oops, and then you want to go ahead and let me see here, go back to, I didn't get everything here. I want to save all my output, copy, and then I want to go here and paste all my variables or all my output and then frequencies from Xspirit. And then I might save this file. I might save this file as, oh, let's say M4 demo 1 Xspirit. Okay, that way I know to upload that variable. I know to upload that file into the appropriate place in my Blackboard module. And then I'll save that. Okay, wherever. And that marks the end of our first demonstration exercise for Module 4. Remember, guys, there are 2 more, all right, that are easy to do.